So yesterday during class, we talked about the coordinate plane, and we started talking about the quadrants and how to describe where something was just by using the x and y axis as different number lines. So I want to review real quick what we went over. Let's first talk about the quadrants. When I label my quadrants, I want to make sure that I always start up here in the top right-hand corner. I always label these as Roman numerals. So this first one is quadrant 1, and I use an I for that. Remember, these go counterclockwise. So moving to the left and staying on the top, we have quadrant 2. Again, using Roman numerals to show that it's II, which stands for 2. Continuing around counterclockwise, I have quadrant 3 down at the bottom left. And the last one, down at the bottom right, is quadrant 4. Remember that we talked about using IV to show 4. So now that I've got my quadrants labeled, I want to go back and I want to think about just a few more things. This point right here in the middle, where the two number lines intersect, is the origin. So I'm just going to label that right here for you so that you can remember that that dot on mine is the origin. We also need to think about labeling the x and the y axis. We talked about the x seems to go side to side. The letter itself goes side to side. The y, however, goes more up and down than the x. So it goes on the vertical axis. Now I want to think about numbering my axes. I need to make sure that my numbers are always directly on top of the lines so that I number the lines and not the spaces. So right here at the origin is 0. Moving to the right, I have 1, then I have 2. Oh, that one's not on the line exactly, so I need to kind of fix that. It may not be exactly perfect, but I need it to be as close to perfect as possible. This goes all the way to 10. Now I've run out of space on my text box, so give me just a second. There we go. Oh, that 9 is not exactly where I need it to be. Notice that it's really important to make sure that those are right there on the line. If we number the spaces and not the lines, we're going to come up with something that's not quite right. Now, when I label the other side here, I want to make sure, again, that I'm very careful to label the lines. Now, because I'm on the computer, I'm going to start over here at -10, but you should start at 0 and work the other direction. I need to make sure that I put negatives and also that they stay exactly on the lines as much as possible. I can't always be perfect, but I need to be as close as possible. That dark line there, that should always be your 5 on this coordinate plane. And so then I made it back to 0. Now I need to do my vertical axis. Again, because of the way that my computer is set up, I know that 10 is my highest number. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see if I can get a new text box. There's a new one. So I'm going to resize this text box so that my numbers are right here directly on top. So I know that the top is 10, and I still need to work on that just a little bit because you see how it wasn't quite on the line. I got to make sure that they're exactly on the line. So I'm going to have to space that one out just a little bit better. Well, it's not going to be very friendly to me, so I'm going to have to just remember that it's supposed to be exactly on the line. Maybe I can move this just a little bit here. There we go. That gets it a little closer. Again, this dark bolded line is my 5. Mine's still not quite right, and I apologize for that. Make sure that when you do yours that you really focus on getting it on the lines. I can't very well change my text size. Oh, here we go. Maybe I've got it. Let's see if I can figure that out for you. Well, there, it disappeared. Fancy that. There we go. That's a little bit closer to what I need. So notice that most of them are right there on the line. Now I need to continue going down. I've already labeled my 0. So now I want to label -1. I need to continue all the way down, labeling the lines, not the spaces. So important to make sure that it is the line. So I would go all the way back down here to my -10. So now we need to talk about how we get to one of these points. Every time we use an ordered pair, we have a parentheses, and then the first number tells us our x, and then the second number tells us our y. Like we talked about in class yesterday, we can also think about that first number telling us how much to go over. Brendan gave us the really good example about going over to what you wanted to jump up and reach, rather than jumping up and trying to move over at the same time. So the first number tells me to go over, the second number tells me to go up or down. Remember those positive and negative words that we worked on. Left is a negative word, so you would be moving to the negative direction. Right would be a positive word, moving to the positive direction. Up is positive, down is negative. So then I also want to think about how it would look with a number. So let's look down here at the star. I'm going to find my star up here. Now, I notice that my star is in quadrant 1. So that's the first piece of information that I want you to include when you do your assignment on your handouts app. See if I can get that right there where I want it. So quadrant 1, I'm going to label that with an I. There it goes. So that's the first piece of information. The second piece of information is I want to know what the coordinates actually are. So the first thing I have to do is figure out what my x value is. How much do I go over to get to the star? Remember, we always go back to the origin. Where do we start? At the origin. So I'm going to move over until I'm straight under the star. And I see that that is a 5. So I'm going to put a 5 there. So I went over and I found the 5. Now I'm going to go up until I get to the star. And I see that that's right even with my 3. So my answer for the star would be quadrant 1. And so I put an I. And then 5, 3. Because I went over 5 and up 3. Making sure that I always use my number over as my first coordinate and my number up or down as my second. Okay, let's do number 2. So same thing. The first thing I want to label is, actually, let's not do number 2. Let's go and do number 10. So I'm going to move this right down here to number 10. So number 10, it's asking me to find the music note. Well, let's see, the music note is right over here. So I need to label that quadrant. It's quadrant 2, so I'm going to use I. Now, we talked about yesterday how sometimes our font that we use when we type doesn't put the line on the top and the bottom like we need it to. It's okay for this. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to figure out, how do I describe where that music note is? I want to remember that the first number is my x value, and that tells me how far I go over. Remembering that we have to move to straight under something or straight on top of it before we jump. I had to move straight under the projector before I jumped up to try and reach the projector, or I would need to move over to the hole before I jumped down into it. So I'm going to move over to the left to get there. When I move to the left, I go to negative numbers, and I see that straight under that music note is a -4. So I'm going to start by putting -4. Now I need to go up from -4 until I get to my music note. When I go up, I see that it's right even with a 3. So those are my coordinates. -4, 3. So that's how you do these first few right here, where it says determine the coordinates of each figure. Well, down towards the bottom, what you'll see is that you're given coordinates, and you need to tell what letter is at that coordinate. So let's look at number 11 together. So the first thing I need to do is check out this coordinate. Remember that the first number tells me to go over. The second number tells me to go up or down. So I need to start at my origin right here at my yellow dot. And I'm going to move over 9. And then the next number is a +6. And positive would tell me to go up. When I go up to +6, see it's right here on the line, I see that that is a C. So for number 11, I'm going to start my text box right here. And I know that this right here, C, is found in quadrant 1. That's the first thing I want you to put. And then space it out pretty well so it doesn't get confused. And the letter that is at over 9 up 6 is C. So the answer for number 11 is quadrant 1, letter C. Let's see. Let's do one more. Let's take a look at number 20. This one's a little bit different, so I want to make sure that we look at this one together as well. Now, when I type it, I'm actually going to have to scroll down a little bit. So maybe I'll just, instead of scrolling down too much, I'll just put my answer right here. That way you can see all of it at the same time. So here's my number 20. Number 20 says that it's -5, -2. I need to remember that my x value comes first. That's how many over. My y value comes second. That's how many up or down. So the -5 tells me I need to start at my origin and move to the -5. So I have to go left to get there. Remembering that I always have to go over to something before I jump up or down to hit it. Now, the next coordinate is a -2. So that tells me I need to move to -2 on the y-axis. And I go down and I see that D is where -5, -2 is. So the first thing that I've been doing over on all of these is identifying the quadrant. This quadrant right here, down to the bottom left, is quadrant 3. That's 3 eyes. Now, when I did that, I went over -5 and down to -2, I found letter D. So there you have it. This is how I want you to complete your assignment today. You're going to be working through several of these pages. Make sure that you do your very best work, and you should have it turned in by the end of the day. I will be checking these, and I'll have your feedback ready for you by the time you come to class tomorrow morning. So thank you so much for paying attention to the video. I really hope you have a good day and that you treat our substitute well. I will see you tomorrow, and have fun.